But hopefully what we're doing in future, as I said, is to put something, a sort of a list on our website, so anybody will be able to go on and double check who's meant to be in my area on these dates. And if it's somebody who's not on our list and not on that exemptions list, then there would potentially be an issue. It might potentially be a fraudulent collection, for example.
So basically this is an example of where we have a policy, but enforcement really relies on residents.
We would have to be told. I mean, obviously we do have some officers who live in the district, so that's we're usually able to sort of find out when bags are coming through, because they'll get them through the door, same as everybody else who lives in the area.
Okay.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions? There's one that I had. When the people are asking for direct debit, now I believe the policy covers it if they do that in house-to-house collections, but not if they do it as a street collector.
That's correct. Yeah, it's just a difference in the law, basically. So because if you're collecting in the street or selling in the street, that it has to be either cash or items. A direct debit mandate is seen as like a promise to give in the future, so it's not a give at the time, if that makes sense. So those people who get called chuggers, unfortunately, which is a little bit unfair, I suppose. If anybody's concerned about those people, they would have to report them to the Institute of Fundraising. They're the ones who regulate the companies involved who do that. So at present, the law just doesn't allow us to control that. It would be nice if the law ever changed to allow us to sort of do everything, but it just doesn't at present. So
yeah, I think that was my thought, actually. Do we have any further questions? I think we.
Sorry.
Yes.
Can I ask additionally, because that's about security, or just again when people just give like direct debit, but they write their bank details, obviously, yeah. Mm-hmm. Which again kind of just that's security exposure, just that's
I personally wouldn't do it myself. I wouldn't be writing down anything and giving it to somebody in the street, but that's just my personal opinion. I wouldn't recommend it. If somebody wishes to sign up, I would go directly to the charity.
The amount of scam and kind of digital scam is getting more and more kind of sophisticated. Because I'm just like today received just pretending to be from government UK, just to apply for my winter winter fuel allowance. Yeah.
Strongly recommend people don't give. Don't give details to people in the street. It's not a good idea, I don't think, personally.
Yeah. But we just can be kind of reflected in the policy, or kind of just be keeping it out of our policy.
It's just not something we can control. Again, it's one of those things that it's not licensable. It doesn't need a license to do it, so we can't control it. I think it's something we can maybe encourage people to go directly to the charities if they want to donate a regular amount to a charity. Go direct in a similar way to if we do end up with problems with people putting bags through doors when they haven't got a license. We can say to people, it would be better if you put things in a big black bag and take it down your local charity shop instead. Because then the full amount is going to that charity, and it's not part of it isn't going off to that commercial entity for driving around and picking the bags up.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any further questions? So in that case, the committee is recommended to consider the results of the consultation at Appendix A, and subject to any further amendments, approve the joint charity collections policy. Do I have a proposer?
Yeah, I'm happy to propose. Yeah.
And a seconder? Oh, Councillor Barrow. Do we have a vote on that proposal, please? Thank you. Thank you very much, Laura. Right. We may now move on to the review of the joint sex establishment policy. I'll again hand over to officers.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just reopening the next introduction so I can read it. So this report is obviously to bring before you the revised joint sex establishment policy for approval. It's a revision of a 2011 policy, which we've updated to ensure it's fit for purpose and covers all types of sex establishments. So previously the old version only covered sexual entertainment venues. We've included within the papers an appendix to show the changes that were made from that 2011 version. As you will see, the policy's been drafted to suggest that we believe the appropriate number of such venues in the district would be nil. A total of 3 responses were received when we consulted on the new policy. 2 respondents disagreed with the proposed policy and 1 respondent agreed. The respondents who disagreed provided qualitative statements, comments, which are detailed within the report, along with our responses to those comments. We haven't made any changes to that policy as a result of the consultation, but I should be very clear the committee are, of course, welcome to amend the policy in view of the feedback received as they see fit, including removal of the nil policy if that's preferred. And just as a final reminder, we don't have any such businesses at present. We just really want to be properly prepared in case we ever do get an application. I don't think there's anything else to add. I'm happy to take any questions.
Do we have any?
I'm intrigued by the nil policy. I totally agree with it, but I guess it's just basically an indication of which way the Vale thinks, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of, we're not sure that it's really a suitable area for this type of venue. Doesn't mean we can reject it out of hand. If somebody applies, we would still have to consider it properly, but it's maybe saving them a little bit of time if it gives them a bit of an indication that it's probably not the best area and they might want to reconsider and consider alternative locations. I think that's the best way to describe it.
I really love the question.
Yeah, I find the nil thing quite an interesting position as well as a council. I think this is 2025. I don't think there's certainly generations below me are not particularly prudish now when it comes to sex, nudity. I find some of the language is quite, so when the language was talking about what it regards as nudity, and obviously the differentiation of nudity between men and women, which I found quite odd. I didn't know if that was sort of government kind of.
I believe it's from the legislation, so it's directly taken. So the definitions of a premises and what needs licensing, what doesn't, is all directly from legislation. So
and then the other thing, sort of with the rise of different types of online channels, for example, like Patreon and OnlyFans, where people might be utilising their personal premises for filming of, a sexual nature, whatever form, from feet and baked beans through to core nudity, whatever goes. So but that is all. I struggle to see how this type of policy is going to be fit for the next 5 to 10 years, given that the sex industry has been very versatile, especially from COVID and beyond, in its digital mediums. So for example, if we got a complaint as a councillor that someone thought that their next door neighbour or a neighbour was utilising their domestic premises for filming for digital content, where would we sit with that from a policy perspective? Because then, is it because someone physically in a whole body person isn't attending the premises and it's digital only? Is it literally
we wouldn't be licensing it. Yeah, then they're not. Right, okay. They're not having people come around to the premises and they're not. Yeah, assuming they're not selling items from that premises. Yeah, it wouldn't be actual items, would it? So it'd be content, like you say. So, but the law doesn't cover broadcast of content from an address. So you'd maybe come down to if it was, where's the actual harm, and is it causing a nuisance because of noise, or if people are able to see things through the windows, that's probably more a matter for the police in respect of decency. Maybe I don't know. I don't know a lot about that, to be honest.
Yeah. So. Okay. So the differentiation then is it's got to be a physical individual going into a physical premises for one of the listed purposes. That is basically it is either a sex cinema, a sex shop, or a sexual entertainment venue. So, and I don't think something where somebody's broadcasting content of an adult nature would fall under any of those definitions. But it's interesting, isn't it? Because and I don't know whether it's something for consideration for the council going forwards, but obviously you don't need to physically go to buy, a vibrator from a shop anymore. I can just buy one on Amazon tomorrow or today, and I'll be here tomorrow. So that it feels like that the physical premises side of things now might be sort of becoming a bit of a death, dying out. So is that why we have a nil position point, or do we have a nil position point because we're Oxfordshire and we're just prudish. What's the
I think it's more to do with potentially seen more as a family friendly and tourist type areas. So
London,
but as I said, it's not a strong view either way. So officers are certainly, with the greatest respect, we sounds like we don't really care. We're quite happy for it to be there or not be there. It's what you as a committee would feel would be appropriate for the area.
I kind of feel like, there's sex shops everywhere, right? And if you want to find a sex shop, you'll find a sex shop. And I think it's that, Ann Summers isn't classed as a sex shop, but there's an entire area of it which has sex toys. So I think if someone wants to sell something, they're going to find a way around a loophole to sell something. I find the nil position it's 2025, man, and this is supposed to be a Liberal Democrat run administration. Like, the nil position just seems a bit, because surely then if it came down to it and then it was, ansex.com wanted to open a cinema in Wallingford or somewhere, or in, Farringdon, then, it would still be a planning. There'd still have to be a planning consent, whether for business usage.
I think they're classification. Things like swingers clubs and things like that.
Yeah, but that stuff goes on everywhere. Yeah, it's just not necessarily licensed. Come on, we live in rural villages, Paul.
No, yeah, I know. I guess that's where you're paying for it, isn't it?
Yeah, never knowingly. But it's, I don't know. I find the nil point is a bit of a. I think it's a really, putting nil in makes it sound as if you're not welcome here. Do you know what I mean? And everyone should be welcome in the Vale, whatever their preference, need, want, whatever you want. And the reality is, I don't think it would ever be used, because you can get everything you want online. And if people are frequenting swingers clubs or any form of other pursuit which involves something physically in a licensed premises, I think there's probably already a pretty good pattern of those across the country that people already have patterned into their free time. I just find the nil point share a bit.
I mean, maybe so. You need to keep an eye on, I think, over the next few years, I think.
You volunteering?
Yes, I don't. I wouldn't change it at the moment. I mean, I must admit that yes, you probably have some valid points there, but I think at the moment, probably with a fairly restricted area, in fact, which are actually licensed, as opposed to what happens generally. That I think I'm quite happy to continue with the nil policy at the moment, because it's anything and just yes, monitor it. I think, and it would be interesting if there was an application.
Yeah, and if there was an application, so that comes. Yeah, you guys look at it and make a recommendation. But does that come to this committee for a sign off, or does it go to like a planning thing, or is it both?
It would depend on whether the premises needed separate planning permission. So, for example, for a shop, it might already have the appropriate planning class of use. So it would then just come to a panel for a decision. Okay. A licensing panel for a decision on the licensing aspect. So
whatever happens, it comes to licensing anyway. Yes. Whether the position is nil or not nil.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. We wouldn't reject it out of hand because of the policy. It's just to try and give them a bit of an indication. But absolutely, would process anything. We thought we'd received one last year, but somebody had sent it to the wrong council. A solicitor had sent it to the wrong council. Oh, it's all right. It's not for us.
Councillor Skinner.
I'm picking up on Councillor Whitmer's point. The policy mentions the licensing authority, but I'm looking in particular at the waiver policy, which I think is a wonderful one. This policy applies in all cases except where we don't feel it should apply, or it's a Tuesday, so we won't apply it. I think again, I suspect that comes out of the legislation, but where my question was, does this committee or a licensing committee make all licensing decisions, or are some of them delegated to officers?
So I believe all of them have to go to a panel as per 9.1 in the policy, regardless of whether there are objections or not.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
May I ask another question?
Indeed.
I had to read something this week. It was only an A4 page, I think, but it was written by somebody who had a particular affinity for grocers' apostrophes, and I was amazed about how hard I found it to read. Every single plural in the thing was marked by an apostrophe. However, on page 90, you have missed an apostrophe.
Oh. No, that's good. I'm absolutely thrilled that somebody's managed to find something. I'm thrilled you've read it so carefully.
It's section 3.7 where you've got it's gone away now, but got it?
Yeah, 3.7. Yeah.
There'll be no charge.
Thank you. I appreciate you bringing it to our attention. Got it.
If we talk about typos, I noticed, I forget which policy, there was a map of the Vale, and the map, South Oxfordshire, and the Vale map was on its side, as it were. I think it was one of those sets policy.
It might have been the charities one.
I think
I know we've got maps in
the
that.
charities one, yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
I ought to have brought it up then. It's only a typo, perhaps, or perhaps not. Perhaps it's put on its side because it looks better that way.
I thought it was fitting. Yeah, that it had to be
fitted that way. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, it is. Yeah, it's the charities one. We'll try and shift that around.
Can I just ask a sort of supplementary to the 3.9, 3.10 on the waivers? Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so for example, where it's got about the waivers to be considered appropriate for nude scenes. So, for example, burlesque. So burlesque is obviously on the rise, and in fact, there was, I think, there's been shows, I think, in the Vale in the last couple of, not even months, weeks, including one at Cornerstone. One at Cornerstone. Was it one at the Beacon as well? I think. And burlesque is great on every level. So how would that work then? So if someone was to apply to utilise a venue that they were hiring in that, whether it's a village hall, whether it's and obviously both of those venues are ones that both different councils control. So does that just come to you guys and you just make a sensible, informed decision based on what you think the level of nudity would be? And the fact that the ticket paying individual attending is in full understanding of what they're going to see.
Yes, what the show's about. And there might be partial, full nudity, who knows, for example. So the burlesque I've seen has not been of a nature that it would actually require a license, for example. So, which I think I saw at Henley Festival, I think it was. So
but obviously some burlesque is getting more interesting. So that there is the sort of the suggested flash, as it would be, but then there is also if the individual was to spend a period of time doing dancing in a full or partial nude state, would that need licensing, or would you still be relying on the ticket holder understanding that they're going to they're not going to watch a Mickey Mouse film, they're off to watch burlesque? And
I think really sort of look at whether it's sort of part of a bigger programme of stuff as well. Because again, the sort of the show I saw was part of a much bigger variety kind of thing. So it was only a very small part of it. So I think you sort of look at it in the whole. And exactly what they're doing, for how long, for example. We haven't had an inquiry. So it's something that we'd be looking at afresh when we do it, if that makes sense.
Right. Okay. So then in that case, you're taking the informed decision. Unless you feel maybe it's borderline, then it might come to this committee.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
If we were at all uncomfortable, if the officers, because most things would tend to go to Diane, who's also on the call, where it's a departure from policy, things like that. It would all be referred to at the very least Diane's level, and then if not, head of service, and if there's still any sort of not sure, then it's it's generally across to you guys. But as I said, but that's just for waivers. As I said, all applications, irrespective of the outcome of any consultation period, would come to you.
Amazing. Thank you.
Any further questions? In that case, can I, the committee is recommended to consider the results of the consultation of Appendix B. I must admit, I did notice there that I think percentages with 3 people is a bit odd.
Yeah.
It's suggesting 67% are against. It reads a bit strangely.
Yeah.
But anyway, consider the results of the consultation Appendix B and subject to any agreed amendments approved a joint sex establishment licensing policy. Do I have a proposer? Councillor Barrow, and a second? Councillor Shaw. Can I have a vote on that, please? It be unanimous. Thank you, everyone. I think on that I can.
I wonder if I could ask a couple of general questions, not to do with that, really.
To do with licensing, I suppose.
Oh, in fact, to do with what we've seen today. I had one question about the consultation. That I find, partly because I tried to do one. I think I may have in fact completed a consultation the other day. When I got to this, which asked me, I don't know, 5 questions, and then I got into this ethnic thing, where several pages of everything except, how tall are you, which was probably at least as relevant as many of the others. I can understand if we're delivering a service that it's important for us to know whether we're delivering it to everybody that we think we are or we want to or whatever. So I can see a strong argument for maintaining, let me call them ethnic, I think there's a better word, but I can't remember it, data on where we're actually delivering services. But when we're asking for opinions, everybody's opinion counts, doesn't it? I don't really, and I find it quite off-putting. If someone's going to ask me to, I'm happy to give my opinion, but if they want my inside leg measurement, I'm not so keen. It takes a lot more of my time than I really want to give. Why do we do it?
So I know that the consultation team have a little note about obviously the information being provided being confidential and only being used to help us monitor whether views differ across the community. It says that right at the bottom of page 77. I know those questions are also standard for every consultation response. So I can pass it back to the consultation team. I can see Diane's got her hand up, so I don't know if maybe she's got an extra point to make here.
Yes, I just want to say, I believe it's to ensure that, it's to check whether the responses we're getting are representative of the residents. But I think we can check with the consultation team. But I believe that's right. It's to see whether the views are representative.
And you're sitting with Team Liberal. I mean, the reality is we are, no matter what you might see, we are in a multicultural, multi-gender, multi-age community in the centre of Oxfordshire.
Yep.
And if we're going to be capturing people's views, for example, in the sex industry, it might be that white female 60 to 75 has more of a view on it than pansexual, Indian.
The view still only counts. It's just a view. It's one person's view.
But it does matter.
And by the way, in spite of that, we didn't go back, even though we only got 3 replies. That was deemed adequate. We steamed on.
Well, consultation's consultation, isn't it? I think one thing I did pick up on, though, now you put is in number 7 in that, where it says, is the gender you identify the same as your sex registered at birth? Back in 2023, I think it was, this obviously the previous administration, which is the same administration, passed a transgender motion. We shouldn't have to ask them to specify below. If someone says no, They don't have to specify.
Oh, okay.
But it doesn't tell you, so either we need to expand on what the right wording is in relation to the human rights, etc., or identifiables, but we shouldn't make people specify. It was one of the things that we agreed. I mean, Democratic Services might need to check against what it was in that motion. I can't remember all the wording now, but we shouldn't make someone, if they say no, I don't identify to the gender I was born with, then that's it.
But it should be option prefer not to say, and it's practically everywhere. There is kind of, just like
no, that is in there.
It
is in there, and it says no, and then it says please specify below. And I thought we'd agreed that would come out. So
yeah, I'll pass that back. Not a problem.
Amazing.
Yeah, I think what we're saying is perhaps a quick review of the consultation policy in that area might be useful. But yes, we still.
We can certainly feed that back. Yeah, more than happy to feed that back to the consultation team.
It is useful to know where people come from.
Okay, I made my comment.
Yeah.
I did have another one.
Thanks.
May I ask something else? These documents are all very long and hard to grasp, I find. But the licensing, by its nature, a lot of the terminology, a lot of the fundamentals is really boilerplate. Have to be a fit person, or things like that. I mean, I haven't done this extensively, but it feels to me as though if we took a serious look at licensing, we could extract quite a lot of the content into somewhere where it lives, where it's in no danger of being mistyped or misunderstood or something, and simply and reduce the size of these policies, and therefore I suggest improve their effectiveness, because a document like that is really hard to understand, and even harder to critique. I mean, it was fun to find a missing apostrophe, but really it's a waste of time. I mean,
very often it's long, complicated documents. You can be provided with an executive summary for these documents.
You can feed it into ChatGPT, and you can ask it some questions, and then it will do the work for you. You can. I mean, the reality is the documents that we see here at the Vale are nothing compared to the last 4 years of documents I've had to read at county, some of which are 400 to 700 pages long.
Well,
it's kind of, we're here, we're elected to do a role. Our role is to either scrutinise, give feedback, etc. We have to read the documents, and as somebody who's neurodiverse, I struggle with big documents. It takes 3 minutes, feed it into ChatGPT, ask it the question that concerns you the most, and it will tell you to go where to go and look. It's really helpful.
I'm not yet happy enough that AI will do that for me.
Well, we're two different generations, so
And maybe, but I've been working that area for 60 odd years. All I'm offering is a suggestion that the documents could be with the right. If you take the right perspective, there is the potential for simplifying them. I wasn't expecting to have a vote on it or anything like that.
I might just point out that I think that they'll, not so much these documents, but previous ones we looked at have actually been simplified. The waste policy one was definitely simplified a great deal. So I'm sure officers are trying to do that. That you must cover everything. And
I imagine, Chair, with those two documents as referenced, there is a large amount of Home Office or government referencing that has to be whacked in at the back end in order to quantify. And again, maybe devolution will make this easier. Who knows? But we're the take national and then sometimes county, and then the Vale then sort of is this bowl that then scoops it all up at the bottom. So the papers are what they are, but thank you, officers, for wading through them all, because you have to read them a lot more, many times than we do.
Yes.
I will pass it on to the officers who wrote them. I know they do their level best to make sure they're as plain English as possible. And the flip side of that is that these have to back us up if we refuse something and then somebody appeals. We have to have a solid policy that is able to show why you made your decision, basically. So why we feel the way we do in a certain way. So it is a bit of a balancing act. But if anybody wants to suggest anything that come out, more than happy. I'm always prefer them to be as short as possible.
I think they're a lot more palatable than what I've had to read for the last 4 years at County Hall. So yeah, the plain English thing is definitely working for me.
Yeah. We basically get 200 pages of Oscar video.
Oh yeah, Oscar's what?
Oh, really?
That's people at the NHS chucked in too.
Yeah. Yes. Anyway, thank you, and I think we can close the meeting at that stage.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can you sort of help us, please?
Well, I did try